Mark Carney has won the race to succeed Justin Trudeau as Canada's Prime Minister. The former central banker secured more than 85% of the vote in the ruling Liberal Party leadership poll.
Mr. Carney's first big task will be to respond to threats from the U.S. president, who has slapped tariffs on its northern neighbour and even threatened to annex Canada.
Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't.
Local media say the new Liberal leader could serve a very short term because the snap general election could be called before an October deadline.
The report suggests that when Parliament resumes in a fortnight, the opposition could return to attacking the Liberals and pile pressure on the minority government to call for polls. All right, for more insight into Mark Carney's win of the Liberal Party leadership and what it means for Canada and its relations with the U.S., we're joined by Dr. Christopher Adams, adjunct professor of political studies at the University of Manitoba. Thank you very much, Professor. And firstly, I just want to get your reaction to Carney's landslide win. And based on his track record as a central banker, what sort of leadership style do you expect Carney to bring to the role of Prime Minister?
The voting report on the voting at the convention in Ottawa just wrapped up about an hour ago, and Carney won with 86% of the vote, which was really astounding. That he beat out Freeland, who used to be the Minister of Finance and Deputy Premier. So it was really quite a shocking victory. Now, to your question, Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of Canada during the 2008 financial crisis here in Canada, but he was also the governor of the Bank of England during the Brexit crisis. So he comes in with impeccable financial credentials, but there are questions about he's never run in politics, so we don't know when he goes on the hustings in the next short while how he'll do. But as you said in your newscast, Donald Trump's, issues of tariffs and things like that have really dominated the debates with the Liberal Party leaders, and that's going to be the big challenge for Mark Carney going into being the new Prime Minister.
Professor Adams, you alluded to this just moments ago. We know that the rising cost of living, housing, and healthcare were key concerns that led to unhappiness with Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. And Donald Trump is the new factor. But I'm curious, what went wrong for Chrystia Freeland? I mean, she's arguably as well known, if not better known. She has the political experience, and she's done quite a bit in the last 10 years or so. And we know Donald Trump doesn't like her as well. I mean, shouldn't that have been working in her favor?
Well, you would. She successfully, with her bureaucrats, has successfully renegotiated the free trade agreement with the U.S. During Donald Trump's first term, and in some ways that caused some of the animosity by the president towards her during this term. But I think people are really surprised. There are 4 candidates for the leadership today, and Chrystia Freeland was really seen as one of the 2 front runners once the leadership race started in early January. But I think there is momentum picking up for Mark Carney. And she started out slowly with some poor interviews, and it just seemed to be slipping. And then Carney just picked up steam, in part because he had a message that was quite distinct from Justin Trudeau. And as you mentioned, Trudeau was really quite unpopular over the past year and a half. The Liberals have been behind the polls, behind the Conservatives by 20 points for much of the year and a half. But things all changed in January with Donald Trump's tariffs, with Carney seen as a new face. And I think it's a new beginning for the Liberal Party going into a probable spring election.
With support for Carney sort of growing rapidly, how soon do you expect Carney will call federal elections, Professor? I mean, hold off on it to allow the party more time to regroup, or a quicker election call for a fresh start?
Well, the general sense is it'll be very quick. He likely will meet with Justin Trudeau, who still is the Prime Minister. He'll meet with him tomorrow to talk about transition. Carney has to be sworn in by the Governor General, who represents the Crown. And then Carney, as Prime Minister, will very likely call an election within the next couple of weeks, which would mean an end of April or early May election. It's doubtful that he will go back to Parliament and have a speech from the throne and let the opposition vote down the government. I think it's quite likely that he will go to a spring election, and very quickly. And I should mention also, they're pretty well tied in the polls, many of the polls recently, and we haven't seen that in 2 years now. So this is a point of high popularity that he'd want to take advantage of.
Right, let me pick up on that. I mean, Mark Carney's pitch to party members, and he did this very early on as well, was his experience, decision-making, and stability that appears to have paid off. We heard him speaking moments ago in his victory speech, shall we call it that, and he focused a lot on division and the unity that's required of the country. I mean, I'm wondering, is his messaging going to be similar as he prepares for a general election?
Yes, so I think three things came from his speech about half an hour ago. Was one, attacking the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, which naturally he would do going into an election soon. The second thing, going after Donald Trump, and your clip showed that it was quite a pugnacious statement he made. He had a number of pugnacious statements made during his speech. And thirdly, I think he's giving a sound of hope. He's talking about, okay, the tariffs coming in, they'll be collecting tariffs against the United States goods. Money will be going into infrastructure. There is, in his speech, kind of an idea of hope for the country under his leadership. And so he seemed to be very well received today. And there were questions about how good of a speaker he is. I think he gave a very remarkable speech. And questions also were about his French. That came up during the French language debate. And the Liberals need Quebec. French Canadian voters to support them. And his French was very good during his speech today.
And Professor, some experts say Carney's deep understanding of global economics puts him in a strong position to manage the trade war with the U.S. I wonder if you agree with that. And how do you think President Trump will be viewing Carney's victory and leadership?
Well, I think his experience, much like Chrystia Freeland's experience, Mark Carney's experience, it will be very valuable for Canada. He's also got when he becomes Prime Minister, a number of deputy ministers who are experienced in this. I think, generally speaking, I think President Trump will just ignore what happened today. I think he'll just consider it not important what's happening north of the border. There might be some areas to converse with, maybe such as Macron in France has with Trump. Maybe there are some areas for shared conversations. But I think that I don't think there'll be a huge difference. But we do know that Justin Trudeau was a lightning rod for Trump. Trump was ridiculing him, calling him Governor Trudeau, not Prime Minister Trudeau. So I think that might help ease the conversation with the Americans, having a different leader who won't be a lightning rod for Trump's anger.
Okay, Professor Adams, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your insight this morning. Dr. Christopher Adams, Adjunct Professor in Political Studies at the University of Manitoba. And of course, you can read more about Mark Carney and his victory in Canada's Liberal Party polls on our website, cna.asia.